to welcome everyone to the second episode of the Ball is Leverage podcast. It's a podcast in partnership with Sports Farm University and Cascade Media. And we're going to be talking about how sports can be used to create opportunities, not just to play in college or to play professionally, but sports can be used to create unique opportunities that people can take with them throughout their whole life, whether they are an athlete who's 5 or an athlete who is 75. So, joining me tonight is Colonel Melvin, and we're going to dive into his story. And so, the first thing I want to do is I want you to introduce yourself and tell us what was your first encounter with sports.
Okay, I'm Corwin Melvin. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I've loved sports and basketball, particularly my whole life. Growing up in the neighborhood, I grew up in the projects in Baltimore, where all we had was a basketball and a milk crate. So started playing on the corner, milk crate nailed to the light post. Just me and guys in the neighborhood. So that's where it all began. And then just playing in the public leagues down in Cherry Hill, the BNBL, the other little local basketball leagues as a kid, 11 under, 13 and under, 15 and under basketball. So that's where I really started just to love the game and just playing with my friends in the neighborhood. And then go to high school. I think I'm pretty good, but I go to Dunbar High School, which is one of the top high school basketball programs in the nation. And at the time, they were like number one in the country. So here I am. I'm 6'5". I think I'm pretty good. I get to Dunbar and I realize everybody's 6'5". So now I'm just a guy, so I had to kind of realize where I was and what my basketball future was going to be. So I decided that well, maybe it's not the thing that I want to do as a primary thing, but it's something that I can enjoy. So that was my early experience, just being a fan over at that school and just being a fan of basketball in general. Um, so there's the early part of me. That's where the love came from. I just grew up in the neighborhood. Rich
I
guy.
want to talk about what you said when you realized that you were just a guy.
Yes.
Um, how did how did you transition? Well, what was your aha moment? Because I know a lot of us parents and also athletes, like parents, we be like, well, I gave birth to the next Michael Jordan. I'm having the next Angel Reese. I know I just gave birth to the next Tiger Woods. You just don't know my child. And then kids, sometimes I am not saying that kids should not have confidence, but
Right.
but there's having confidence and then there's having realistic understanding of your skill set and where you fit or where you don't fit and your opportunities for the future. And for me, that's where a lot of athletes get tripped up. They don't have someone who has given them a realistic expectation of their talent and a way to measure it. So talk us through when you started to realize like, okay, I'm just a guy, and
Yeah.
how you transitioned. It might have been a healthy transition, or if maybe it wasn't healthy. And how do you transition to the next phase of your life?
I think for me it was because I like basketball and I enjoy playing the game. But to be great, you have to love basketball. It has to be the first thing you think of in the morning and the last thing you think of at night. You really have to focus and really have to dedicate yourself to be great. There's thousands and thousands of good basketball players in the world, but there's only a handful of great ones. So for me, I knew that one, I didn't really have that drive and desire to really push to do that. I wanted to do other things. So I was a fairly good student. I was pretty popular. So I wanted to do all the other things that come with being 6'5" and this, that, and the other, and thinking you could play a little bit. So I wanted to do all of that. Where the guys that were really good, they were focused. They were in the gym. They were doing those things. So that was something I learned, and that's also something, I have three sons, all play basketball at some level, so my older two played in college, my younger two played in college. But the conversation with them was always, have fun, enjoy it, but don't let it define you. Um, Make the most out of it, get everything you can out of it, and then take those opportunities and then live your life because even the best basketball players play until they're 40, most play until they're 30. You have 50, 60, 70 years of life left to live after the ball stops bouncing. So prepare yourself for that. So take advantage of the opportunities that basketball presents you. My sons were able to go to private school. Most of it was free. So they had all of these opportunities that they were able to take advantage of. Go to college for free. So if you can get a free bachelor's degree, free master's degree, then you're already winning. Even if you never play professional basketball after that, you're already winning. So take advantage of the things that the sport presents you as you grow and mature, and then use those things, those skills to move on in life.
So, high school Mel, you're looking at yourself and you're saying, hey, I don't love this. I don't love it, but there's some things that I can do to take advantage of this. So, as you're pivoting into your future and acknowledging, I'm not about to be in I don't want to be in the gym at 5 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon. There's benefits to being on the team.
Yes,
However, I want some life outside of being on the team.
right.
What was your first opportunity, or what was your path to begin to take advantage of the opportunities afforded to you by playing basketball and knowing that, hey, I'm not going to do this. I don't even want to do this as my life. So what was your first pivot?
My first pivot was in high school. So it was early in high school, probably 10th grade was when I really realized that, as much as I like basketball, I'm not going to be that guy. So I had to, so what that means is you need to pay attention academically. You're not going to be one of these guys that, can just skate through and still get everything that you want. So you have to take advantage of the academic side of it, get smarter. You can love the sport and not play the sport. So you can learn the game, you can study the game, and you can study players and how coaches do things. So that was early on. That was where my focus was just getting through high school and trying to be as best as I could. When I did get a chance to go to college, um, went to college. I realized in some things that I took as I became a father and started raising my sons is there are things that you should learn early on and learn in high school and learn that prepare you for college. And if you don't learn those things, you'll struggle. And that's time management, self-discipline, all those things that boys, especially black boys, struggle with. And that's why we have the highest dropout rate in college because we don't learn those key lessons growing up. And a lot of it, sports teach you a lot of discipline, a lot of self-discipline, those kinds of things. So those are skills that you can take from sports. Time management is a skill set that you can take from sports. Those are things that I didn't learn. So when I went to college, I wasn't prepared. So those are lessons when I talk to parents, whatever, with kids. I say, hey, anything they can learn anything. But some of the most important things they need to learn is how to set a schedule, how to stick to a schedule, how to get up in the morning, how to prepare yourself for your day, how to study, and those things, the things that carry you throughout life. So for me, that was going into college. I realized, as much as I tried to prepare myself, those are the things that were missing. And I didn't have my father when I was growing up, so I didn't have that one person to really lean into me to lean into these things. So that's one of the lessons, and I talk about that in my book. As a parent, it's your responsibility to to teach these things to your kids and really enforce and have them really take ownership of those things. How to manage your time, how to be self-disciplined, how to communicate, how to represent yourself when you're out in public and when you're around other people. Just things that you don't really think about are big deals, are huge deals when you talk about raising a kid, even if he's whether he's an athlete or not. These are things that are life lessons that you need to learn. A lot of them I didn't learn because I didn't have that person to really show me or guide me into those things. So that's why when I have these conversations with parents, I really talk to them about, spend time with your kids, talk to them, and make sure that they know what's really important. That basketball is a great thing and you can enjoy it and you can take advantage of the opportunities that it gives you. But take these other things, learn how to be a good teammate, learn how to be social, learn how to like I said, self-discipline, those other things, take those positive things from sports and translate those into your real life and then you'll be fine moving forward. When the ball stops bouncing, whether it stops in high school, college, or after college. So
I'm gonna point out two things. One of the opportunities that has happened is you get to pour into other parents. 10th grade you. Did you ever, and I know that you have poured into thousands of parents. 10th grade you, did you ever see yourself as a person who is shaping the the minds of and the habits of parents and athletes coming along by the hundreds and the thousands? Did you ever think that you would be in that place where there's this group of people who are actively seeking you out to say, what do you think? What decision should we make? Where should we go? Did you see yourself in that light?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it's kind of one of those things you don't really plan for. It kind of just happens that way. You go just like you. You go through your life. You do the things you do. You try to learn as much as you can about what's in front of you, what you feel is important, and the fact that it impacts other people is a bonus. Because I'm social. I'm a social person. I like to talk. So if somebody's asked me about, hey, your sons play basketball, this, that, and the other, what do you think? Then you just open the door for me to just give you my, tell you everything and how I feel about it. And it's not always positive stuff. It's just as much. Folks need to know that there's a negative side to all of these things. So I'm a parent who has lived through it. I've had sons. We've gone through the injuries. We've gone through the poor coaching situations. We've gone through the schools we couldn't stand. I mean, we've gone through all of it. So if folks say, "Hey, what do you think?" I can give them an honest opinion. I mean, the reclass, I've done all of it. So and you know how much of a hot button topic that is. So I've made all of those decisions as a parent. But ideally it's always in trying to do what's best, for your athlete, for your kid. But those decisions shouldn't just be about basketball. They should be about molding a person that you can send out into the world and feel confident that the one they can carry themselves the right way, and two, they're not going to embarrass you.
And I will say, I always like to highlight people who are sharing their knowledge, because for me, one of the most critical missed opportunities among athletes as and parents especially is simply creating space to share your knowledge, because it's not pretty. We love to see they're the first rounder and most of us don't have a most of us, I'm learning, like, don't have a pretty journey. Like, there are injuries, there are coaches that you can't stand, there are schools that you're like, I can't believe these people lied to me like this before we got
Exactly.
here. And so for me, there's a lot. I admire those of us who have the courage to say, not only am I in the arena doing this thing, but here, let me share my journey with you, even though it's not pretty. Let me, there are parts of it that are beautiful and parts of it that are not. Let me share it with you in all of its honesty, and you can take the pieces that you need so you don't make the same mistakes I made.
Exactly. Exactly. And so
And
when you go, I'm sorry.
I know I'm just kidding. That's one of the most unique opportunities that I've seen you create. Because, like, the way that we encountered each other was you had a group of literally thousands of us, and you were dropping nuggets in there, creating space for us to have conversations and people to share their views, even when those views were very different. And so I admire that, because for me, most parents that I talk to, like, they're like, well, I don't have any value. And you do have value. And so I always admire those of us who are out there actively creating the space to share what we went through with the parents who were coming behind us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I enjoy it. I love being in the gym. Even to this day, I love being in the gym. I love talking to folks about basketball, and I love talking to people with young kids who are just beginning the journey. And they don't always want, like everybody, like you said, everybody thinks their kid is the next Allen Iverson, next LeBron James, so they don't really want to hear it. A lot of times they want to hear that their kid is going to be that guy, is going to be the kid, is going to be the one that takes them out of here and gets them the big house. But that, I mean, and that can happen, especially with NIL right now. That can happen. But you can't, you shouldn't bank on your child being that for you. If they're blessed to have that type of a talent and they are able to s- get that kind of money early, then it won't last forever. So take that, put it away for them. So when they are done with basketball, they have something that they can fall back on. But I think we've gone through generations of parents who look at their kid as the golden ticket, and that can happen, but for most of us it doesn't happen that way. So take those other lessons that you and your child can benefit from, and make the most of those, and just the experience. I miss being in a car driving up and down 95 with my sons in the car, sleep in the back,
Oh my God.
Chipotle wrappers all over the back seat of the car. That's what I miss about basketball. It was never about, oh, these guys are going to the league. It's about, oh, we get to spend all of this time together. We get to travel. I get to watch them have their successes, take their losses, take the lumps. I get to share that with them, that experience with them, which is invaluable. Especially now as they're all getting older. My youngest son is the last one that's really playing. He's at Bowie State playing. He has 2 years left to get his graduate degree. So he'll finish 2 degrees, zero debt, zero loans. And I tell him all the time, I said, once you get that degree, you can do whatever you want to do. If you don't ever want to play basketball again, you got the right education, the right degree. You can walk out here and live your life and be proud of the person you are, and you just be proud of how basketball got you to this point. And now you can just live your life. So because I prepared them for that, I've always wanted them to know that there are other opportunities out here.
And
So,
so, in the spirit of creating opportunities using ball as leverage, a lot of us say, oh, I'm going to use ball to get college. But what I heard you say is before college, a different type of education, you got an opportunity to um, have your boys have even a high level of, what do we call it? We don't call it elementary education. Secondary school, primary school,
yeah.
upper school, private school.
hmm
So
High
talk,
school.
so talk to us about how did, because you have to be a smart parent, right? You have to recognize that the opportunity is available. So how did you transition? What made you decide? How did you use ball to actually begin the process of expanding their academic options even in high school?
The blessing is that my two of my sons were 6'7" coming out of middle school. So
Whoa.
there's a genetic blessing there, so that helps. So that automatically gets coaches' attention. So if you have talent and you're that size and they see the potential in you, then that opens opportunities. So both of my younger sons, both one went to Paula Six, which is one of the best high school basketball programs here in the DMV. The other one went to DeMatha Catholic, which is also one of the best high school basketball programs here in the DMV. So they both got opportunities to go to those schools. My son went to DeMatha, didn't pay a thing for 3 years. Um, it was a great opportunity, but like I said, it helps to have the physical look of a basketball player. So that's a plus. Um, so those are opportunities that they probably wouldn't have gotten if they were 5'9", unless they were Allen Iverson, or an elite kid. But there are a lot more kids that are 5'9", 5'10", 5'11", that are very skilled and very good than there are kids that are 6'7", 6'8" at 14. So that gave them those opportunities. And then it was a matter of, making sure that it was still the right place. Like my son who went to DeMatha, we were there for 3 years, and then we realized that one, he may not get the opportunity that he needs or that I feel like he should get there because it's so many kids coming in and out of there that if you're not ready when you show up, you're probably not going to get ready there, because kids are there. These programs at that level are recruiting kids because they want to win games right now. So they're looking for those kids who may be a little older in middle school, who may be a little more developed, who are more physically ready to play. So those are the kids they're looking for. My son was 6'7", but he weighed like 165 pounds, so he was thin. So you knew he needed some time to develop. And once we realized he wasn't going to get it there, then that's when I decided to reclassify him. And
Okay.
then I moved him over to another school called Potomac School, which is a high academic high school.
Okay.
So the blessing in that was now he's in an environment where it's all about the academics, and basketball is, I mean, even though they had a good basketball program, the coach was a good coach, basketball wasn't a focus. The academics were the focus. So it better prepared him for college, because you had to be disciplined to get through that school. He was there for 2 years, and so that's the best, probably the best decision I made for any of them in high school was moving him from the Mather Catholic over to the Potomac School because that school academically prepared him for what he needed to do when he got to college. Because a lot of times kids go to college, the coaches, they love the kid, this, that, and the other. Then they stick them in these academic programs where they can't get a job when they get out of school. See, these are the stories that folks don't really want to talk about. How there's a whole chapter in that. How
Listen.
how coaches steer kids into into degrees that have no value when they graduate just to keep them eligible to play. Um, so that's that whole conversation. I wanted to make sure that my sons could succeed academically, regardless of where they went. And then when they stopped, they could walk into a job and make good money out the gate. So those are the conversations. Those are part of the conversations I like to have, and things that I wrote about in my book is just you have to think beyond the sport. Everybody gets and basketball players older 35. You know, if he makes it to 40, he's a genetic freak like LeBron James. If he can still play at a high level at 40 years old, there's like one or two of those guys. So now you're 35, 40 years old, and you don't have basketball anymore, and you got a degree that you can't use or that has no value. So what do you do? What do you do? Now you're struggling. So that I didn't want. I knew I'm not going to be here forever, and I want these guys to be able to be successful. When I long after I'm gone. So that was the fun in it.
So you brought it up, and it's a great segue, great transition because I wanted to talk about it. I'm kicking myself because I have your book, but it's in my room, and I'm like, oh, I need to be able to hold it up so the world can see it. So one of the yes, 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 yes. That's thank you. So
Surviving youth sports, a dad's
so
guide for parents of young hoopers.
So that's what I wanted to talk about because when you use ball to create this whole group of parents and you've been pouring into them and telling them truth. You use ball to you recognize the value of ball and genetics, and your kids get a great private school education. They go to college and they get free degrees. And one of the things that you're doing, going back to high school, Mel, did you think that you were going to be an author?
Oh my gosh, no. And I'll tell you, and that came up because as part of my journey was the fight for custody of my sons when I was going through my divorce. So a big part of my journey was just that whole thing and becoming a single dad. My youngest son was 4 years old when I separated from my ex and got custody. So they were 4, 7, and 10. So I'm raising these young men and learning all of that. So there are a lot of life lessons that went into that. Um, so in high school, no, I never would have thought. And a big part of my life, I never thought. When I went through that divorce, by the way, I wrote about that in my first book, Just a
All
Dad.
right. Okay.
Just a Dad. So I talk about that journey. But as a part of that, my best friend Dave told me, he said, "Man, you really have a story. You should write a book." So this was years ago. Then so I kind of just let it go. It was in the back of my mind. And then I met this wonderful young lady a couple years ago, and she said, "Hey, hadn't you mentioned writing a book? When are you going to start?" So that's when I started. So last February, March, I started writing, and by the end of the year, I was done with my first book. So that's when I became an author. Early last year is when I became an author, and then since then I wrote my second book. Surviving Youth Sports is my second one. So I've written two books in 18 months, because I just got this bug. I know, but on top of that, so I said, hey, let me share this because this is my thing. This is a niche. This is something that I really enjoy doing. So let's share it. So since then, I've also coached two other authors to write their book. One of them is Rob Nickens, who is the winningest coach in DC high school basketball history, coaches at Eleanor Roosevelt down in DC. A great guy. And another one is Ricky Goins, who's a basketball influencer here in the DMV. Another great guy. So both of those guys' books are out, doing well. So I've turned my love of writing into a love of coaching other authors. Help my father-in-law publish his book. I'm right now working with my daughter-in-law. She's writing a book. She's writing a self-help, kind of a biography, kind of self-help kind of thing. She wants to coach. She coaches other young women, so I'm helping her write her book. So I went from a guy who had never written a book to a guy who has had a part in 6 books, whether as an author or as a coach.
And that's amazing. And what I love is that you tell your story. You tell your story. You're still creating your own opportunities to help the parents that are coming behind you. And I just talk to parents all the time, and they come and they're like, well, I don't have my story doesn't have value.
Oh gosh.
Who would want to know this? I'm ashamed because maybe my son like is only playing overseas, or maybe they're not playing at all. I'm like, but you got free college, or you got some discounted college. Like, there's no shame in any parts of our journey when we use ball to get where we need to be for the next phase of life. And so I really love that you actually not only wrote a book, but you actually also help others write books as well.
Yeah. And I talk about that. There's so much that a kid can learn, can get from basketball. When I talk to parents, I say, well, all kids won't go to college. All kids won't be pros, but every kid can have a positive and fun basketball experience. At whatever level they end up at, whatever level they achieve, they can enjoy playing basketball at that level. So that's what parents should strive for. They should strive, and I always like try to pour into my kids, and I just want them to be able to have fun, learn the things they can learn, get the most out of it, and keep them busy, because the idle mind is the devil's playground. So as long as they're in the gym, we're all in there together. As long as we're in the gym and we're constantly on the road, we're constantly doing these things, then they have a level of focus, they have a level of discipline, and you never know where it might take you. Say we're guys who were played, came off the bench in high school, never started in high school, who are coaching, college teams and coaching at these other levels, your basketball niche may not be as a player. It could be something other part of the game. If you really love the game, you could be a coach. You could be in the front office somewhere and never really played at a high level. It's just there's so many things or so many directions you can go. You know, because you love anything. There's so many ways you can take it. It doesn't have to be physically. I'm a player to get the most out of it.
And it's good that you say that because like last week, the first episode, I interviewed a young man named Devin, and he played baseball in high school. And his friend that he went to college with continued baseball, and a connection that they made. His mom was in the back of his head saying, you should be an analyst, because he was a person who wrote, and he had a camera, and he was like, okay, well, I'm gonna start, just keeping the stats and writing about the baseball team. And that ended up him going to be asked to be a writer. Well, first he was like, I'm gonna write on Facebook. And then his stories from Facebook got him a job with his college newspaper. So you never know, like a little small thing. I love baseball. I'm gonna go hang around. My friends playing. There's a gap. They need somebody to,
Exactly.
report on the
Exactly.
stats. And so I love that he had no desire to play in college. And it's funny you talk about front office, because my son played in college, but his desire is to work in the front office. And that's just what he wants to do. He wants to be in the front office in some way. And so like you said, you never know. Um, I'm going to ask a couple of questions just to wrap us up.
Okay.
Again, thank you so much for like just sharing your story, because there's a lot. If someone wants to buy the book, I'm gonna need you to send me the link so that when we put this out,
Okay.
I can actually when we post it on the website, we can
Mhm.
actually have your link underneath it.
Okay.
And we do a book of the month. The Cascade Media does a book of the month. So I will tag you for an upcoming month, because your story, both of them are valuable and they need to know. And I'm gonna just ask as we close, looking back on your journey for the first time you put a basketball or any ball in your hands until today, for you, what's the greatest opportunity that you've created because of sports?
Any when you say the greatest thing, the greatest part of my life in sports is my sons. It's watching my sons play. It's watching my sons recover from injury and fight, and just seeing perseverance, desire, and determination. Knowing that I played a part in building that in them, the willingness not to quit, the heart to fight, even in the face of adversity. That is the biggest thing. Being a father is the most important thing and the most rewarding thing I've ever done. So that's easy. What have I done for anybody else? I've had the pleasure of watching. I watched the winningest coach in DC basketball history cry when he opened his book. When he opened the Amazon package that had the first copy of his book in it, that's when that was one of the most rewarding feelings outside of being a parent. You know, that had to do with sports. You know, getting married was tops that. But when it comes to sports, that's that moment. You know, seeing this grown man has won his whole life. You know, has won his whole life. Open that book, hold it in his hand, and get choked up and could barely speak. That was a great feeling. That was a great feeling. So I'm open. So if anybody wants to write their first book, and they just need somebody to encourage them and help them along in that process, I'm available. My book can be bought at it's my name, corwinmelvin.com. Nice and easy, corwinmelvin.com. And if you order it there, I'll send you a signed copy of my book.
Oh, and just want to ask that you put it out there to help people. If a person is listening to this, when we send it out to the world, and they say, "I have a story to tell," how could they contact you to become one of your clients?
Well, I'm everywhere on social media is my name, Corwin Melvin. I use my name everywhere. And you can email me at corwin.melvin@hotmail.com. My name is everywhere. I'm an open book. You know, I don't have none of these snazzy, fancy, profiles or anything. It's pretty simple. I'm Corwin Melvin on Facebook. I'm Corwin Melvin on Instagram. I'm Corwin for five on TikTok. I'm Corwin Melvin everywhere. So feel free to reach out. And if you just have some questions or whatever, or just want to talk about some things, I'm open to that too. But I love to write. I love to help new writers. Um, Everybody has a story, and I tell folks that say your story, eh, because we won't live forever, but your book can. So your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, your great great grandchildren can read your story. They will never know who you are in person, but they can know who you are through your story. So there's no such thing as a story that nobody wants to read. You have your family, you can pass it down generations, and it's a lasting legacy.
I love that. There's no story that no one wants to read. I love that. I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast. This was actually really, really a great interview. I've learned so much. I mean, I knew a lot, knew some of it, but just learned a lot. And I hope that when people are listening to this, when you listen to this, I want you to think about what he just said. There's no story that no one wants to read. Your story has value. And if you're the parent of an athlete or an athlete who's listening to this, I want to challenge you to stop saying that ball is life and to start looking to say ball is leverage and begin to ask yourself, what can ball do for you?
Absolutely,
What
absolutely. It can open doors. It can open doors. It can help, and outside of that, just internally, it can help you build confidence. It can teach you how to be a better communicator, be a better teammate, better leader, better follower. There's so many things that you can get from the sport that are outside of just playing basketball.
like you hit on a lot of resilience and being able to be a part of a team, learn how to work together. But I think
Absolutely,
one of the missing skill sets that I observe as I work with families is resilience.
absolutely,
Just the sheer ability to stick to it. And I'm like, okay, this is something that you learn in sports all the time.
absolutely, absolutely. There are so many lessons that you can learn. Like I said, and you could never play college basketball. You can never you don't ever even have to be a starter on your high school basketball team, and you can still learn so much from the game. So you just take those lessons, have fun, and you just enjoy it, make the most of it.
Oh, I want to thank you for the conversation, and I want to thank the listeners for listening. This has been the second episode of the
Nice.
Ball is Leverage
I should have
podcast.
been first, but okay.
Thank And again, as you listen to it, ask yourself, what can ball do for you?
This program is brought to you by the City of Fountains Coaches Association.